When you were a child, one summer felt like forever. Every birthday took ages to arrive. But then, somehow, the years began to disappear. So what changed? Did time start moving faster? Or did your brain? Remember, being 7 years old, 1 year felt enormous. Summer holidays seemed endless. Waiting for your birthday felt almost impossible. Every season arrived slowly, as though time itself had decided to take its time. But somewhere along the way, something changed. Today, weeks become months. Months become years, and before you realize it, another birthday has already passed. Many people describe it the same way. It feels like last year was just yesterday. But this isn't simply nostalgia. It's an experience shared by millions of people around the world. In fact, psychologists have studied this phenomenon for decades. And while clocks continue ticking at exactly the same speed, our experience of time can change dramatically throughout life. The strange part is, this feeling doesn't begin when you're old. Many people notice it in their 20s, others in their 30s. And with each passing decade, the years often seem to slip away even faster. So, what is happening inside the brain? Has time itself changed? Or has your mind quietly changed the way it measures it? To answer that question, we first need to understand something surprisingly simple. There's something strange about growing older. The clock never changes. A year is still 12 months. A month is still about 30 days. And a day is still 24 hours. Yet, somehow, a year can feel enormous when you're 5, and surprisingly short when you're 50. So, what changed? One explanation begins with something surprisingly simple: perspective. Imagine you're 5 years old. You've only been alive for 5 years. One more year represents 20% of your entire life. That's enormous. Now, imagine you're 50. 1 year represents just 2% of everything you've ever experienced. The year itself hasn't become shorter, but compared to your entire life, it occupies a much smaller piece of the picture. And this is where our perception of time begins to get interesting. Why one single year feels completely different to a 5-year-old than it does to a 50-year-old. When you're young, almost everything is new. Your first day at school, your first holiday without your parents, your first best friend, your first time seeing snow, or flying on an airplane. The world is constantly introducing you to something you've never experienced before. So, your brain has more moments to notice, more experiences to remember, more landmarks that separate one period of your life from another. But as you grow older, something begins to change. The world doesn't necessarily become less interesting, but more of it becomes familiar. And when life becomes familiar, time can begin to feel different. Which brings us to something even more important than age: novelty. Because perhaps the reason childhood feels so long isn't simply because you were young. Perhaps it's because your brain was experiencing the world for the very first time. Maybe the reason childhood feels so long has less to do with age and more to do with how much of the world is still new. Think about your first day at school, your first close friendship, your first trip somewhere unfamiliar, your first major achievement. These moments stay with us, not because they lasted longer, but because our brains paid closer attention. When something is new, we notice more, we remember more, and those memories become landmarks in our lives. But as we grow older, more of life becomes familiar. The same roads, the same routines, the same places, day after day. Your brain doesn't need to record every detail. And suddenly, you look back and wonder where the last 5 years went. That's the strange paradox. Routine can make time feel slow while you're living it, but incredibly fast when you look back. And this may be one of the reasons adulthood seems to disappear so quickly. But there's still a deeper question. How does the brain actually turn our experiences into memories? Here's where things get even more interesting. Your brain doesn't record your life. Like a camera, it constantly decides what is worth remembering. Think about the last 7 days. You probably can't remember every meal, every road you traveled, or every ordinary conversation. But you might remember something unusual, a birthday, a surprising event, something that made you laugh, or something that scared you. These moments stand out because your brain treats them differently. But when your days become repetitive, Monday feels like Tuesday, Tuesday feels like Wednesday, and before you know it, an entire month feels like it disappeared. Not because time actually moved faster, but because your brain created fewer memorable landmarks. And when you look back, those missing landmarks can make an entire period of your life feel compressed. Maybe the feeling that life is speeding up isn't entirely about time itself. Maybe it's about the moments your brain chooses to remember. So, can we actually make time feel slower? We can't change the clock. We can't add more hours to a day, but we may be able to change how we experience those hours. One way is through novelty. Try something you've never done before. Visit somewhere you've never been. Learn a new skill. Meet new people. Break the pattern of your usual routine. Because when life becomes predictable, our brains can begin to process it almost automatically. But when something is new, we pay attention. We notice details, and we create memories. So perhaps the secret to making life feel longer isn't slowing time down. It's filling it with moments. Your brain won't simply forget, because when you look back, a life filled with new experiences can feel much richer than one that simply passed by unnoticed. Maybe time was never actually speeding up. The clock on your wall is moving at exactly the same speed it always has. 1 second is still 1 second. 1 year is still 1 year. But somewhere along the way you experience those years changed. As a child, the world was new. Every year brought new places, new people, new experiences. Your brain was constantly creating memories. But as you grow older, life can become predictable. The days begin to look alike. And when you look back, entire years can seem to have disappeared. Maybe that's why, we shouldn't only ask, how much time do I have left? Maybe we should ask, how much of the time I have will I actually remember? Because perhaps we don't make life feel longer. By slowing down the clock, we make it feel longer. By paying attention, by trying something new, by breaking the routine, by creating moments that deserve to be remembered. Because one day, when you look back at your life, you won't remember every ordinary Tuesday. You won't remember every hour that passed. You'll remember the moments that made you stop and truly feel alive. So maybe time isn't disappearing faster. Maybe we're simply becoming more aware of how little of it we truly notice. And perhaps the real secret isn't to make time move slower. It's to make the moments count, because the moments we remember are the moments that make a life feel lived. Rare fact: your brain may actually perceive time differently. When you're in danger, during a frightening or life-threatening event, many people report that time seems to slow down. But here's the strange part. Scientists believe this may not be because your brain is actually processing time faster. Instead, your brain may simply be paying extremely close attention, creating a much denser memory of the experience. So when you look back, the moment can feel like it lasted much longer than it actually did. In other words, sometimes it's not time that slows down. It's your brain that starts noticing everything. Time keeps moving. But if you want to understand the strange things happening inside your mind, stay curious. This is Rare Explained. Follow and keep exploring the things you never thought to question.